She kept the billionaire CEO's daughter a secret until her life depended on his blood. Jessica Morgan stood in the gleaming lobby of Harrison Technologies, heart hammering against her ribs as security called up to the executive floor. 15 years of secrets were about to shatter in an instant. Her hands trembled as she clutched the medical file containing the proof that could save her daughter's life. "He'll see you now, ma'am," the receptionist said, gesturing toward the private elevator. As the elevator climbed 40 floors, Jessica's mind raced through what she would say to the man she'd once loved, the man who had never known he had a daughter, until now, when their child's life hung in the balance. The doors slid open to reveal Daniel Harrison himself, standing in the corridor, confusion etched across his still handsome face. "Jessica?" His voice was a mixture of disbelief and wariness. "My assistant said it was urgent." Jessica stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, we have a daughter. She's 15 years old, and she's dying. Her only chance of survival is you." Daniel's face drained of color. "What kind of game is this?" "No game," Jessica replied, her voice breaking. "Her name is Emma. She has a rare blood disorder, and she needs a transfusion from a blood relative, from you." "I wouldn't be here if there was any other way." Daniel stared at her, his expression hardening. 15 years of silence, and now you show up claiming I have a child? How convenient that she needs something only a billionaire father could provide." Jessica's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. "She doesn't need your money, Daniel. She needs your blood. And every minute we stand here, arguing, is another minute she might not have left."
Hello, beautiful family. If you've ever faced an impossible choice to protect someone you love, give this video a like and subscribe to Cedar Drama for more stories that touch your heart.
Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's begin this emotional journey. Jessica Morgan's tires squealed as she pulled into the emergency entrance of Pinecrest Memorial Hospital, her heart racing faster than the vehicle she'd just parked haphazardly across two spaces. Her 15-year-old daughter Emma lay unconscious in the passenger seat, her skin alarmingly pale against her dark hair. "Help! Please! I need help!" Jessica shouted as she burst through the automatic doors, panic making her voice shrill. "My daughter, she collapsed at home! She's in the car!" Medical staff rushed past her with a gurney, moments blurred as Emma was transferred inside, an oxygen mask placed over her face, vital signs checked with urgent precision. Jessica ran alongside, clutching her daughter's limp hand, until a gentle but firm nurse guided her away. "Ma'am, we need to help your daughter now. Please, let us do our jobs." The nurse's voice was kind, but left no room for argument. "Is there something specific we should know about her condition?" Jessica struggled to speak through her fear. "She's been tired, bruising easily. The doctor was running tests, but we didn't have results yet. She just collapsed while doing her homework." "Her name and age?" "Emma Morgan. She's 15. Jessica swallowed hard. "Please save her. She's all I have." As Emma disappeared behind swinging doors, Jessica sank into a waiting room chair, trembling. Her mind raced back through 15 years of secrets and sacrifices, choices made in what she'd believed was love. Now, those choices might cost her everything. 16 years earlier, Jessica had been 24 and ambitious, landing a coveted position as executive assistant to Daniel Harrison, the brilliant founder of a promising tech startup. Daniel was everything the business magazines claimed: innovative, driven, charismatic, and far more handsome in person than in his press photos. "Jessica, right?" Daniel had said that first morning, extending his hand with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Welcome to Harrison Tech. Don't believe the rumors that I'm impossible to work with. I'm merely exacting." "I enjoy exacting," she'd replied, matching his firm handshake. "And I don't put much stock in rumors." Those early days had been exhilarating. Jessica worked 14-hour days alongside Daniel, ordering midnight meals, reorganizing chaotic files, becoming indispensable. She witnessed his brilliance firsthand, the way he could envision technological solutions others couldn't begin to imagine. Their professional relationship shifted one rainy evening when everyone else had gone home. Jessica had stayed to help Daniel prepare for a crucial investor meeting. The office was quiet, except for the gentle patter of rain against floor-to-ceiling windows. You know, Daniel had said, looking up from his laptop, I couldn't have pulled this presentation together without you. Jessica smiled, surprised by the compliment. Just doing my job. No, he insisted, closing his laptop and standing. Most people just do their jobs. You understand what we're trying to build here. You see the vision. He'd move closer, and Jessica found herself unable to step away, unwilling to break the intensity of his gaze. Jessica, he whispered, his hand gently touching her cheek. Tell me I'm not imagining this connection between us. Their first kiss tasted of coffee and possibility. Jessica knew workplace relationships were complicated, especially with her boss. But Daniel wasn't just any boss. He was creating something revolutionary, and she felt privileged to be part of it, part of his world. Their relationship developed in stolen moments, late nights at the office that turned into dinners, early mornings, bringing coffee and sharing quiet conversations before others arrived. Daniel was intensely private, insisting they keep their relationship quiet. The investors are conservative, he'd explained. They're already nervous about backing such a young founder. I can't give them any reason to think I'm distracted. Jessica understood. The company came first. Daniel was on the verge of something extraordinary, and she wouldn't stand in his way. Then came the morning. Jessica stared at a positive pregnancy test in her apartment bathroom, emotions warring between terror and elation. She and Daniel had been careful, but not careful enough. She spent the day in a daze, uncertain how to share the news, hoping Daniel would be pleased once the initial shock wore off. She arrived at the office early the next day, intending to tell him immediately, but found him in a closed-door meeting with potential investors. Through the glass walls, she watched his animated gestures, the passion with which he spoke about his vision. As she waited outside, she overheard snippets of conversation when his office door briefly opened. I assure you, gentlemen, nothing will stand in the way of making Harrison Technologies a success. Daniel was saying, nothing and no one. This company is my life, my sole focus. I have no distractions. The door closed again, but those words echoed in Jessica's mind. Later that afternoon, she overheard Daniel on the phone with his mentor. Family? Kids? Daniel laughed. Maybe in 10 years, when the company's established. Right now, that would be a disaster. I can barely remember to feed myself. Each word felt like a knife to Jessica's heart. She knew then that her news would not be welcomed. It would be seen as a catastrophic complication to Daniel's plans, to the future he was building. She'd become the very distraction he couldn't afford. That night, Jessica made the most difficult decision of her life. She typed her resignation letter with trembling fingers, citing a family emergency that required her immediate relocation. She left it on Daniel's desk along with her security badge and company phone. Daniel called repeatedly over the next few days. Jessica let the calls go to voicemail, each one more confused and frustrated than the last. Finally, she texted a simple message. I'm sorry. This is for the best. Please don't contact me again. She moved to Bayview, a small coastal town 3 hours north, where an old college friend helped her find an apartment and a job as a virtual assistant that allowed her to work from home. As her pregnancy progressed, Jessica threw herself into preparing for single motherhood, attending classes alone, setting up a nursery in her tiny second bedroom, choosing a name, Emma, after Jessica's grandmother. When Emma was born on a stormy April night, Jessica held her daughter for the first time and made a promise. I will give you everything I possibly can, she whispered to the tiny bundle in her arms. And someday, you'll understand why I made the choices I did. Years passed, and Jessica built a life for herself and Emma in Bayview. She transitioned from virtual assistant work to remote software consulting, building on skills she developed at Harrison Technologies. The irony wasn't lost on her that Daniel's company had given her the foundation for supporting their daughter. From a distance, Jessica watched Daniel's meteoric rise. Harrison Technologies revolutionized data security, then expanded into consumer electronics, artificial intelligence, and more. The awkward, brilliant young entrepreneur became a polished CEO, gracing magazine covers and giving TED Talks. His net worth climbed into the billions. Sometimes Jessica wondered if she'd made the right choice. On difficult days when Emma had a fever that wouldn't break, when the car broke down, when school expenses strained, their budget doubt crept in. But then Emma would smile. a smile so much like her father's that it made Jessica's heart ache, and she would remind herself that her daughter was thriving. Emma grew into a remarkable child, whip smart, with a natural affinity for mathematics and science, yet also creative, filling sketchbooks with intricate drawings of imagined technologies. She had Jessica's dark hair and compassionate nature, but Daniel's piercing green eyes and analytical mind. At 8, Emma began asking about her father. Jessica had prepared for this, knowing the questions would eventually come. "Your father was a brilliant man who wanted to change the world," Jessica explained carefully. "But sometimes people can't be together, even when they care about each other." "Did he die?" Emma asked, her young face solemn. "No, honey. He's alive." "Then why doesn't he visit me? Doesn't he want to know me?" Jessica gathered her daughter close. "It's complicated, Em. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions they think are best at the time. It doesn't mean they don't care." "Do I look like him?" Jessica smiled sadly. "You have his eyes. And his mind, the way you can solve puzzles others find difficult. That's all him." As Emma grew older, her questions became more pointed. By 12, she was savvy enough to search online for clues, though Jessica had never revealed Daniel's name. Jessica walked a careful line between honesty and protection, sharing small truths while guarding the secret that could upend their lives. "Mom," Emma said one evening, as they washed dishes together, 13 and increasingly perceptive, "I think my father didn't know about me, did he?" Jessica nearly dropped the plate she was drying. "What makes you say that?" "The way you talk about him. You never say he abandoned us, just that you couldn't be together. And you get this look sometimes, like you're carrying something heavy." Jessica set down the dishcloth and turned to her daughter. "You're too smart for your own good, you know that?" "So I'm right?" Emma pressed. "It's more complicated than yes or no, Emma. Your father was building something important when I found out I was pregnant with you. His whole future, everything he'd worked for, depended on his complete focus. I made a choice I thought was best for everyone." "Don't I have a right to know him?" Emma asked, her green eyes so like Daniel's flashing with hurt. "Someday you might," Jessica said carefully. "But right now, our life is here. And it's a good life, isn't it?" Emma had nodded, but Jessica knew the conversation wasn't truly over. Her daughter was too persistent, too curious, too much like both her parents to let such questions lie dormant forever. Life continued its steady rhythm. Emma excelled in school, particularly in computer science and engineering. Jessica's consulting business grew, allowing them a comfortable, if modest, lifestyle. They had their routines, weekend hikes along coastal trails, movie nights with homemade pizza, summer camping trips to national parks. Then, 3 months before Emma's 16th birthday, Jessica noticed changes. Her energetic daughter began coming home from school exhausted. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. One morning, Jessica found Emma examining a large bruise on her shin. "Did you hit something at basketball practice?" Jessica asked. Emma shook her head. "I don't even remember bumping into anything." A week later, Emma's math teacher called. "Emma nearly fainted during class today," she explained. The school nurse checked her over and said she should see her doctor. The family doctor ordered blood tests and suggested it might be anemia or perhaps mononucleosis, common in teenagers. But when the results came back, his face grew serious, and he referred them to a hematologist at the regional medical center. Dr. Lewis, a specialist in blood disorders, reviewed Emma's case with increasing concern. More tests followed: bone marrow biopsies, genetic panels, specialized blood work. Emma endured it all with quiet courage, though Jessica caught the fear in her daughter's eyes. "What's wrong with me?" Emma asked one night, curled beside Jessica on the couch. "No one will give me a straight answer." "They're being thorough," Jessica reassured her, stroking her hair. "That's a good thing." But privately, Jessica was terrified. Emma was growing paler, more fatigued. The bruises multiplied. Nosebleeds became frequent. When Emma developed a persistent fever that wouldn't respond to medication, Dr. Lewis admitted her to the hospital. "Miss Morgan," he said, taking Jessica aside while nurses settled Emma in her room, "we've identified Emma's condition. She has a rare form of hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis, HLH. It's an aggressive disorder where certain white blood cells become overactive, attacking other blood cells and tissues. Jessica struggled to process the unfamiliar term. What does that mean? What's the treatment? HLH can be either inherited or acquired. Emma's appears to be the familial type, which means it's genetic. Treatment involves immunosuppressive therapy, but in Emma's case, we're seeing complications that make standard protocols risky. The doctor hesitated. The most effective treatment would be a bone marrow transplant, ideally from a close blood relative. Are there any siblings? Her father, perhaps. Jessica felt the floor tilt beneath her. I'm an only child. My parents are deceased. Emma's father, he's not in the picture. Dr. Lewis's expression grew grave. Miss Morgan, I don't want to alarm you, but Emma's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We're seeing signs of organ involvement. A transplant from a matched family donor would significantly increase her chances. What if there's no family donor available? Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We can search the National Registry, but finding an unrelated match takes time. Time Emma may not have. The success rates are also lower with non-family donors. That night, Jessica sat beside Emma's hospital bed, watching her daughter sleep fitfully, tethered to IV lines and monitors. The steady beep of the heart monitor punctuated Jessica's racing thoughts. For 15 years, she'd protected Emma from complications she believed would arise from Daniel's involvement. Now, Emma's very survival might depend on the father who didn't know she existed. Jessica slipped out of the room and found a quiet corner of the hospital garden. With shaking hands, she pulled up a business news article on her phone, featuring a recent photo of Daniel Harrison. He looked older, of course, distinguished lines around his eyes, a touch of silver at his temples, but unmistakably the same man who had captured her heart all those years ago. Harrison Technologies' headquarters were in San Francisco, a 6-hour drive from Bayview. According to the article, Daniel was launching a new artificial intelligence platform next week, undoubtedly the culmination of years of work. Jessica's interruption couldn't come at a worse time for him professionally. But none of that mattered now. Emma's life hung in the balance. Jessica returned to her daughter's room to find Emma awake, her skin translucent in the harsh hospital lighting. Mom? Emma's voice was faint. What aren't the doctors telling me? Jessica sat on the edge of the bed and took Emma's hand. They've diagnosed your condition, sweetheart. It's called HLH. It's a blood disorder that's causing your immune system to attack your healthy cells. Can they fix it? Emma asked, fear evident beneath her attempt at bravery. They're starting treatments, but Jessica took a deep breath. The most effective treatment would be a bone marrow transplant from a blood relative. Emma's gaze sharpened despite her weakness. Jessica nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. You're going to contact him, Emma stated, understanding immediately. You're going to tell him about me. Yes. Who is he, Mom? Emma asked, the question she'd been asking in various forms for years. Who is my father? Jessica pulled out her phone and showed Emma the article with Daniel's photo. His name is Daniel Harrison. He founded Harrison Technologies. Emma's eyes widened as she studied the image. Harrison Technologies? The Daniel Harrison? He's my father? She looked from the photo to Jessica in disbelief. Mom, he's like famous. He's a billionaire. He wasn't when I knew him, Jessica said softly. He was brilliant and driven, but his company was just starting. No one knew then what it would become. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. Does he know about me? No, Jessica admitted. I never told him. Why? The simple question held years of unspoken hurt. Because I thought I was protecting both of you, Jessica said, finally sharing the full truth. He was at a crucial point with his company. Having a child having any distraction would have derailed everything he'd worked for. And later, when his company took off, I worried about what that fame and fortune might mean for us, for your normal childhood. That wasn't your decision to make, Emma said, a flash of anger giving color to her pale cheeks. He had a right to know. I had a right to know him. You're right, Jessica acknowledged, tears filling her eyes. I made a choice I thought was best at the time. I was young and scared, and once years had passed, it seemed impossible to undo it. But none of that matters now. All that matters is getting you well, and if that means facing Daniel after all these years, that's what I'll do. Emma reached weakly for Jessica's hand. What if he doesn't believe you? What if he doesn't want to help? He will, Jessica said with more confidence than she felt. Once he knows you're his daughter, he'll help. When will you go? Tomorrow. Dr. Lewis is starting you on medications to stabilize your condition, but I need to find Daniel as soon as possible. Emma looked again at the photo of Daniel Harrison, her father, the stranger whose blood might save her life. Tell him. She began, then faltered. Tell him I'd like to meet him. Even if he doesn't want to know me after, I'd like to meet him just once. Jessica nodded, her heart breaking for all the lost years, all the moments father and daughter should have shared. I will, Em, I promise. The next morning, Jessica packed an overnight bag and gathered every piece of evidence she could find. Emma's birth certificate father, unknown. Childhood photos highlighting Emma's resemblance to Daniel. Recent medical records detailing her condition and the urgent need for a family donor. Dr. Lewis provided a detailed medical explanation and a letter emphasizing the time-sensitive nature of Emma's situation. If he agrees to be tested, the doctor explained, he can have the initial blood work done in San Francisco. If he's a match, and as her biological father, there's a strong chance he will be, we can arrange for the donation process here. Before leaving, Jessica sat with Emma, who was sleeping fitfully, her body weakened by both the disease and the aggressive medications trying to slow its progress. Jessica kissed her daughter's forehead. I'll be back as soon as I can, she whispered. Stay strong, my brave girl. The 6-hour drive to San Francisco gave Jessica too much time to think, to second-guess, to rehearse and discard dozens of opening lines. How did one begin such a conversation? Remember me, your former assistant? Surprise, we have a daughter. Or perhaps the direct approach. Our daughter is dying and needs your bone marrow. As the city skyline came into view, Jessica's anxiety peaked. She had no appointment, no guarantee Daniel would even see her. Harrison Technologies now occupied a gleaming tower in the financial district, its logo a stylized H with a lightning bolt through it illuminated against the afternoon sky. Jessica checked into a modest hotel, showered away the travel fatigue, and changed into the one business outfit she'd packed, a simple navy dress that had seen her through client meetings for years. Not cutting-edge fashion by San Francisco standards, but presentable. She gathered her documentation into a folder and took a taxi to Harrison Tower. The lobby was a testament to Daniel's success. Soaring ceilings, modernist furniture, and a massive digital installation that responded to movement with flowing patterns of light. Jessica approached the security desk, heart pounding. I need to see Daniel Harrison, she said, striving for calm confidence. It's a personal matter. The security guard looked unimpressed. Do you have an appointment? No, but it's extremely urgent. Please tell him Jessica Morgan is here. She hesitated, then added, we knew each other years ago, when the company was just starting. The guard made a call, speaking quietly. Jessica stood rigid, half expecting to be escorted out. Instead, the guard handed her a visitor badge. 40th floor. The receptionist will meet you at the elevator. The elevator ride felt eternal. Jessica clutched her folder of evidence, rehearsing what to say, how to convince Daniel this wasn't some elaborate scheme. The elevator opened directly into a reception area, where a polished young woman waited. Miss Morgan? I'm Alicia, Mr. Harrison's executive assistant. He's in meetings all afternoon, but I've been instructed to ask about the nature of your urgent business. Jessica took a deep breath. I need to speak with Daniel directly. It's personal and confidential. Please tell him it involves a medical emergency. Alicia's professional demeanor didn't waver. I'll see what I can do. Please wait here. Left alone, Jessica paced the reception area, noting framed magazine covers featuring Daniel and awards recognizing Harrison Technologies' innovations. Daniel had achieved everything he'd dreamed of that night in the rain-streaked office when they'd first kissed. Minutes stretched painfully until Alicia returned. Mr. Harrison will see you briefly between meetings. This way, please. She led Jessica down a corridor to a conference room, not Daniel's office, Jessica noted. A neutral space, defensive positioning. He'll be with you momentarily, Alicia said, closing the door behind her. Jessica stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Francisco Bay, trying to steady her breathing. The door opened, and she turned. Daniel Harrison stood in the doorway, impossibly familiar despite the years between them. His dark hair was now threaded with silver at the temples, and fine lines surrounded his eyes, but his tall frame and penetrating gaze remained unchanged. He wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, a far cry from the jeans and hoodies of his startup days. "Jessica?" His voice held genuine surprise. "My assistant said it was urgent." Jessica stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, we have a daughter. She's 15 years old, and she's dying. Her only chance of survival is you." Daniel's face drained of color. "What kind of game is this?" "No game," Jessica replied, her voice breaking. "Her name is Emma. She has a rare blood disorder, and she needs a transfusion from a blood relative, from you. I wouldn't be here if there was any other way." Daniel stared at her, his expression hardening. 15 years of silence, and now you show up claiming I have a child? How convenient that she needs something only a billionaire father could provide. Jessica's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. "She doesn't need your money, Daniel. She needs your blood. And every minute we stand here arguing is another minute she might not have left." Daniel crossed his arms, skepticism evident in every line of his body. "Do you have any idea how many people try to claim connections to me for financial gain? Last month, a woman insisted I fathered her twins during a conference I never even attended." Jessica opened her folder and laid out Emma's birth certificate. "I was already pregnant when I left Harrison Technologies. I never told you. That was my choice. And maybe it was wrong. But this isn't about the past. It's about Emma's life." She placed a recent photo of Emma on the table. "Look at her, Daniel. Really look." Daniel glanced at the photo, then did a double take. The resemblance was undeniable. Emma had his eyes, the same distinctive shape and unusual green color, his high cheekbones. Even the small dimple in her right cheek when she smiled. "This could be photoshopped," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Jessica laid out more photos Emma at various ages, all showing the unmistakable Harrison features. "I have never asked you for anything, Daniel. Not child support, not recognition, nothing. I've raised her on my own, working remotely as a software consultant. We have a good life in Bayview. I'm only here now because Emma has HLH, a rare and aggressive blood disorder. She needs a bone marrow transplant, ideally from a close blood relative." She placed the medical reports on the table. "These are her test results. This is a letter from her hematologist explaining her condition and the urgency. You can verify everything. Call the hospital. Speak to Dr. Lewis yourself." Daniel picked up the medical report, scanning it with a rapid comprehension that had always impressed Jessica. She could see the moment his skepticism began to waver. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice quieter now. 15 years, Jessica. A child. My child. That I never knew existed. "I overheard you that day, talking to the investors," Jessica explained. "You said nothing would stand in the way of your success, that the company was your sole focus. Later, you were on the phone saying a family would be a disaster." She met his gaze. "I was 24, Daniel. You were clear about your priorities. I made what I thought was the best decision. You had no right." "I know that now," Jessica interrupted. "But this isn't about our past mistakes. It's about Emma. She's smart, Daniel. Brilliant, actually. She loves coding and engineering physics. She sketches designs for technologies that don't even exist yet. She's so much like you." Daniel set down the reports, conflict evident on his face. "Even if what you're saying is true, it is true. You know it is." "What exactly are you asking of me?" "Initial blood work to confirm compatibility, and if you're a match, which you likely will be, a bone marrow donation. It's an outpatient procedure. Uncomfortable, yes, but not dangerous." Daniel was silent for a long moment, processing. "I need to verify all of this. I'll have my medical team review these records and consult with her doctors." "Of course," Jessica agreed. "But please, Daniel, time is critical. Emma's condition is deteriorating rapidly." "Why now?" Daniel asked suddenly. "If she's had this condition her whole life." "She hasn't," Jessica explained. "HLH can be triggered by infections or other factors. Emma was perfectly healthy until 3 months ago. It came on suddenly, and it's progressing faster than the doctors expected. Daniel rubbed his forehead, visibly struggling with the situation. I have meetings for the rest of today that can't be rescheduled. The AI platform launch is next week. But I'll have my personal physician review these records tonight and arrange for preliminary testing tomorrow morning. Where are you staying? Jessica gave him her hotel information. Daniel nodded crisply, gathering the medical documents. I'll keep these to share with my doctor. I'll contact you tomorrow with next steps. Thank you, Jessica said, relief flooding through her. Daniel looked at her sharply. I'm not doing this for you, Jessica. If this child is mine. Emma. Her name is Emma. If Emma is my daughter, and she needs medical assistance I can provide, of course I'll help. But don't mistake this for forgiveness or acceptance of what you did. I don't expect forgiveness, Jessica said quietly. I just want our daughter to live. As she turned to leave, Daniel spoke again. One more thing does she know about me, about who I am. She's known she has a father somewhere, but I only told her your name yesterday, after the diagnosis. She'd like to meet you, regardless of what happens after. Daniel's expression was unreadable. Let's focus on the medical situation first. Jessica nodded and left the conference room, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her. In the elevator down to the lobby, she checked her phone and found a text from Dr. Emma, stable but weak. Fever increasing despite medication. How soon can donor testing begin? Jessica texted back, potentially tomorrow morning. Still working out details. Back at her hotel, Jessica called the hospital and spoke briefly with Emma, who was groggy from medication but alert enough to ask about the meeting. He's going to help, right? Emma asked, her voice faint. He's having his doctors review your case tonight, Jessica answered carefully. He'll probably have tests tomorrow to see if he's compatible. Did he believe you? About me being his daughter? Jessica hesitated. He's cautious, Emma. He needs to verify everything. That's just how his mind works. But he saw my picture? Yes, he did. And? Emma pressed. He could see the resemblance, Jessica admitted. It's pretty undeniable, sweetheart. You have his eyes exactly. After reassuring Emma that she would call again in the morning, Jessica finally let herself cry for the years lost, for her daughter's suffering, for the painful confrontation with Daniel. She'd known it would be difficult, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of facing him after all this time, of seeing the anger and betrayal in his eyes. Just as she was preparing for bed, her phone rang an unknown number. Thinking it might be the hospital, she answered quickly. Jessica Morgan. Miss Morgan, this is Dr. Andrew Miller, Mr. Harrison's personal physician. I've reviewed your daughter's medical records and consulted with Dr. Lewis at Pinecrest Memorial. I've arranged for Mr. Harrison to have compatibility testing first thing tomorrow morning at Stanford Medical Center. The results will be expedited. Can you be available at Mr. Medical Harrison's office at 2 p.m. tomorrow to discuss next steps? Yes, absolutely, Jessica replied, relief washing over her. Thank you, Dr. Miller. I should warn you, the doctor added, HLH is aggressive and complex. While a bone marrow transplant offers the best chance of recovery, it comes with significant risks and a challenging recovery period. I understand. We're prepared for whatever comes next. We just need a chance. After the call ended, Jessica lay awake for hours, her mind replaying the confrontation with Daniel, imagining tomorrow's meeting, and constantly returning to Emma, alone in her hospital bed. Would Daniel truly help once the test results confirmed what Jessica already knew? And even if he did, would the treatment work? Or had she found Emma's father too late? This mother's impossible choice will change everything. Comment below what you would do in her position. If you're moved by Jessica's courage in facing her past to save her daughter's future, hit that like button and subscribe to Cedar Drama for stories that touch your heart and remind us of the lengths we'll go to protect those we love. Jessica woke before dawn, her sleep fitful and unsatisfying. She checked her phone immediately. A text from the night nurse confirmed Emma had finally fallen into a deeper sleep after a fever spike that had concerned the medical team. Jessica's hands trembled as she replied, asking for updates throughout the day. Unable to return to sleep, she showered and dressed, then found a small cafe near the hotel where she could have coffee and try to eat something. Her appetite had vanished since Emma's diagnosis, but she knew she needed strength for whatever came next. At precisely 2 p.m., Jessica arrived at Harrison Tower, her nerves slightly calmer than the previous day. The same security process followed, but this time she was escorted directly to Daniel's private office on the 41st floor, a vast space with panoramic views of the bay. Daniel stood by the window, speaking quietly on the phone. He gestured Jessica to a seating area while he finished his call. Jessica noted how tense he appeared, his shoulders rigid beneath his perfectly tailored shirt. "Yes, I understand the implications," he was saying. "We'll need to postpone the launch. No, that's final. Family emergency." He ended the call and turned to Jessica. "The test results confirm it," he said without preamble. "I'm Emma's biological father." Though Jessica had never doubted this, hearing Daniel acknowledge it sent a wave of emotion through her. "Thank you for getting tested so quickly." "Dr. Miller has spoken extensively with Dr. Lewis," Daniel continued, his tone businesslike. "They agree that a bone marrow transplant offers Emma the best chance for survival. I've arranged for my company jet to fly us to Pinecrest this afternoon. A surgical team is being assembled, and the procedure is scheduled for tomorrow morning, assuming Emma's condition remains stable enough." Jessica blinked, struggling to process the rapid developments. "You're coming to Bayview? Today?" "Of course I am," Daniel replied, a flash of irritation crossing his face. "This isn't something I can delegate. I need to meet with Emma's medical team in person. And I need to—" He faltered for the first time. "I need to meet my daughter." Jessica felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thank you, Daniel. Truly." "Don't thank me," he said, his voice tight. "I'm not doing this for you." "I know," Jessica nodded. "You're doing it for Emma. That's all that matters." Daniel turned away, gathering papers from his desk. "My assistant has arranged for your hotel checkout. The car will take us directly to the airport. We leave in 30 minutes. "I need to call the hospital. Let them know we're coming," Jessica said, already reaching for her phone. "It's been handled. Dr. Lewis has been informed. The medical center is coordinating with my team." Of course, Jessica thought. Daniel always did excel at managing logistics. The ride to the private airfield passed in tense silence. Jessica's thoughts raced between concern for Emma and acute awareness of Daniel beside her, checking emails on his tablet, occasionally making brief calls to postpone meetings and delegate responsibilities. He was efficient, even in crisis, perhaps especially in crisis. The Harrison Technologies jet was sleek and luxurious, but Jessica barely noticed the plush leather seats or attentive staff. As they took off, Daniel finally set aside his devices and turned to face her. "Tell me about her," he said abruptly. Jessica looked up in surprise. "Emma?" "Yes, Emma," he replied with a hint of impatience. "My daughter. The person I'm about to meet for the first time because you decided I didn't deserve to know she existed." Jessica flinched at his tone, but recognized the hurt beneath the anger. "What would you like to know?" "Everything. 15 years and the time we have before landing." Jessica took a deep breath. She was born on April 12th, a month early. 7 pounds even. She hardly cried, just looked around with these curious eyes, taking everything in. The nurses said they'd never seen such an alert newborn. Daniel's expression softened slightly. "Was the birth difficult?" 26 hours of labor, Jessica admitted. "My friend Rachel held my hand through it all." "You were alone," Daniel stated, something unreadable crossing his face. "No family?" "My parents had passed away. My mother the year before I met you. My father when I was in college. Rachel was my family then. Later, I made friends in Bayview, other single mothers, mostly." Jessica pulled out her phone, opening a photo album. "Here, this might be easier." She passed him the phone, open to Emma's baby pictures. Daniel hesitated before taking it, as if the reality of what he had missed might be too painful to witness. "She had colic for the first 3 months," Jessica continued as Daniel swiped through photos of a dark-haired infant. "Neither of us slept more than 2 hours at a stretch. I used to walk her around the apartment singing Bob Dylan songs, the only thing that seemed to soothe her." A ghost of a smile touched Daniel's lips. "I remember you liked Dylan." Her first word was book, Jessica continued. Not mama or dada, but book. She was 9 months old, pointing at my bookshelf, clear as day. She was reading simple words by 3, full sentences by 4. Her preschool teacher suggested we have her IQ tested, but I refused. Why? Daniel asked sharply, looking up from the photos of a toddler Emma building elaborate block towers. Because I wanted her to have a normal childhood, not to be labeled or pressured. She was already so hard on herself, so determined to get everything right. Daniel was silent, and Jessica knew he recognized that trait in himself. She built her first computer at 9, Jessica continued. Saved up allowance money and birthday gifts. Ordered parts online. Followed tutorials. When it didn't work the first time, she spent 3 days troubleshooting until she found a loose connection. Like father, like daughter, Daniel murmured, swiping to a photo of preteen Emma proudly displaying a crude but functional computer. She wants to study biomedical engineering, Jessica said. She has this idea for neural interfaces that could help people with spinal injuries. She's already sketched preliminary designs. Daniel stared at a recent photo of Emma before her illness, smiling widely at a science fair, standing beside a project display. She looks so much like my mother, he said quietly, something about her smile. Jessica hadn't considered that connection before. Your mother, is she still? She passed away 5 years ago, Daniel replied. Heart attack. It was sudden. I'm sorry, Jessica said sincerely. She never knew about Emma either. No, Daniel said, his voice hardening again. No one in my family knew. No one had the chance to know. He handed the phone back to Jessica, his expression closing. What does Emma know about me? About why I wasn't in her life? Jessica chose her words carefully. I told her that you were building your company when I learned I was pregnant, that the timing was impossible. As she got older, I explained that I'd made the decision not to tell you, that it wasn't your choice to be absent. Yet you never reconsidered that decision, Daniel observed. Even as my timing improved, even as the company succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. I considered it, Jessica admitted, many times. But the longer I waited, the more impossible it seemed. What would I say? Sorry I kept your child from you for 5 years. For 10 years. And then there was Emma, to consider. She was happy, thriving. I worried about disrupting her life, about subjecting her to publicity or custody battles. So you made unilateral decisions about both our lives, Daniel stated flatly. Yes, Jessica acknowledged. I did. And maybe that was wrong, but I can't change it now. All we can do is focus on helping Emma. The jet began its descent into Bayview Regional Airport. Daniel stared out the window at the coastal town below, the place where his daughter had grown up without him. After the medical situation is stabilized, he said, his voice carefully controlled, we'll need to discuss legal arrangements, custody, support, visitation. Of course, Jessica agreed. But maybe we should see what Emma wants too. She's old enough to have a say. Daniel's jaw tightened. Assuming she pulls through this. She will, Jessica said with fierce determination. She has to. A sleek black SUV waited on the tarmac. Daniel spoke briefly with the pilot about return arrangements, then joined Jessica in the vehicle. The driver seemed to know their destination. Without being told another detail, Daniel had managed from afar. As they approached Pinecrest Memorial Hospital, Jessica felt Daniel tense beside her. This imposing man who commanded a global technology empire was nervous about meeting his teenage daughter. Despite everything, her heart ached for him. She's going to like you, Jessica said softly. She's been curious about you her whole life. What if she hates me? Daniel asked, revealing a vulnerability Jessica hadn't expected. What if she blames me for not being there, even though I didn't know? Emma is many things, but she's not unfair, Jessica assured him. She understands more than most kids her age. The SUV pulled up to the hospital entrance. Before they got out, Daniel turned to Jessica. I need a moment with her alone, he said, after the initial introduction. Just father and daughter. Jessica hesitated, her protective instincts flaring. She's very weak, Daniel. The medications make her confused sometimes. "Please, Jessica," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "I've missed 15 years. Give me 15 minutes." Jessica nodded. "Okay." Dr. Lewis met them in the hospital lobby, extending his hand to Daniel. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming so quickly. I'm Dr. David Lewis, Emma's hematologist." "What's her current status?" Daniel asked, bypassing pleasantries. "She's stable but fragile," Dr. Lewis explained as they walked toward the elevator. "We've managed to bring her fever down slightly, and the preliminary immunosuppressive therapy is showing modest results, but the underlying condition remains aggressive." "And the transplant?" Daniel pressed. "What are her chances?" Dr. Lewis glanced at Jessica before answering. "With a well-matched donor, which preliminary testing suggests you are, I'd estimate a 60 to 70% chance of full recovery. There are significant risks, of course. The preparatory regimen is intense, and her body is already weakened." "But without the transplant?" Daniel asked. Dr. Lewis's expression grew somber. "Without intervention, given the rate of progression we're seeing, weeks, at most." Daniel nodded crisply, absorbing this. "Then we proceed as planned. What do you need from me?" "We'll begin the donation process tomorrow morning," Dr. Lewis explained. "Today, we'll complete final compatibility testing and brief you on the procedure." They reached Emma's room, and Jessica felt Daniel hesitate. She touched his arm lightly. "Ready?" she asked. Daniel straightened his shoulders, the vulnerability of moments ago replaced by determination. "Yes." Emma was awake, propped up slightly against pillows, an IV line in her arm and monitors tracking her vital signs. Her dark hair had been pulled back into a messy ponytail, and her skin was frighteningly pale, making her green eyes, Daniel's eyes, seem enormous in her thin face. Despite her obvious weakness, she was attempting to work on a laptop balanced on the adjustable bed table. She looked up as they entered, her eyes immediately fixing on Daniel. A complex mixture of emotions crossed her face: curiosity, nervousness, and something like recognition. "Emma," Jessica said, moving to her daughter's side, "this is Daniel Harrison, your father." Daniel stepped forward, his expression softening as he looked at Emma properly for the first time. "Hello, Emma." Emma studied him intently. "You have my eyes," she said finally, with unexpected humor. "Or I guess I have yours, technically." A smile broke through Daniel's careful composure. "Technically correct. The best kind of correct." "That's what I always say," Emma replied, her own smile appearing briefly before fatigue reasserted itself. Jessica watched this exchange with a tightness in her chest, happiness and grief and hope all tangled together. The resemblance between father and daughter was even more striking with them in the same room, sharing the same wry half-smile. Dr. Lewis stepped forward. "Emma, Mr. Harrison has agreed to be your donor for the bone marrow transplant. We'll start the procedure tomorrow morning." Emma nodded, then looked back at Daniel. "Thank you for coming. I know it must have been a shock." "It was," Daniel acknowledged, "but I'm glad to be here now." An awkward silence fell. "Doctor?" Lewis cleared his throat. "Miss Morgan, could I speak with you about some paperwork? And Mr. Harrison, the phlebotomist, will need to take additional blood samples for final typing." Jessica recognized the doctor's attempt to give everyone a moment to breathe. "Of course." "Emma, I'll be back soon. Do you need anything?" Emma shook her head. "I'm okay." As Jessica followed Dr. Lewis into the hallway, she glanced back to see Daniel carefully settling into the chair beside Emma's bed. Their daughter was watching him with the intense focus she applied to complex puzzles, as if trying to find pieces of herself in this stranger who shared her DNA. Jessica spent 30 minutes completing paperwork and discussing Emma's treatment plan with Dr. Lewis. When she returned to the room, she paused in the doorway, reluctant to interrupt the scene before her. Daniel had moved his chair closer to the bed and was examining something on Emma's laptop screen. Emma was gesturing weakly but with obvious enthusiasm, explaining something complex, while Daniel nodded, occasionally asking questions. Their heads were bent together, dark hair against dark hair, identical expressions of concentration on their faces. "So you've bypassed the standard interface entirely?" Daniel was asking. Yes, because the neural pathways need direct communication, Emma explained. The traditional methods introduce too much latency. Clever, Daniel murmured. Very clever. Have you considered quantum entanglement as a transmission method? Emma's eyes lit up. I've been reading about that. The research is still theoretical, but... She broke off, noticing Jessica in the doorway. Mom, did you know Dad's company is working on quantum computing applications? The same principles could work for my neural interface idea. Dad. The word hung in the air, seemingly as surprising to Emma as it was to her parents. She blushed, faintly, suddenly uncertain. Is it okay if I call you that? She asked Daniel. I know we just met, but... It's more than okay, Daniel said, his voice rough with emotion. It's everything, Emma. Jessica felt tears pricking her eyes and blinked them back. What have you two been discussing so intently? Emma was showing me her designs for neural interface technology. Daniel explained, a note of pride unmistakable in his voice. They're remarkably sophisticated for someone without formal engineering training. Mom got me books and online courses, Emma said. And I've been following the research journals. She's been working on this concept since she was 13, Jessica added. Every science project, every coding challenge, somehow relates back to it. It's a worthy focus, Daniel said. Genuinely innovative thinking. A nurse entered with medications for Emma's IV. Sorry to interrupt, but it's time for your treatment, Emma. This might make you sleepy. Emma nodded, already looking exhausted from the brief burst of energy the conversation had given her. As the nurse administered the medication, Daniel stood. I should let you rest, he said. I need to check in with the medical team about tomorrow's procedure anyway. Will you come back later? Emma asked, fighting to keep her eyes open. Try to keep me away, Daniel replied softly. In the hospital corridor, Daniel walked silently beside Jessica for several moments before speaking. She's extraordinary, he said finally. Brilliant, of course, but also kind, thoughtful. She asked about my mother, about growing up in Chicago. She wanted to know if I'd always been interested in technology. That's Emma, Jessica said. Always more concerned with others than herself. Even now. Daniel stopped walking, turning to face Jessica. I've missed everything, he said, raw pain in his voice. Her first steps, first words, first day of school. I never taught her to ride a bike or helped with homework or kissed a scraped knee. 15 years, Jessica. 15 years I can never get back. Jessica felt the weight of his words, the justifiable accusation beneath them. I know, she said quietly. And I'm sorry, Daniel. Truly sorry. Before he could respond, Dr. Miller approached, clipboard in hand. Mr. Harrison, we've completed the final compatibility testing. You're an excellent match for Emma, better than we might have expected. The donation procedure is scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. Excellent, Daniel said. Professional composure instantly restored. What do I need to know? The procedure itself takes about 2 hours, Dr. Miller explained. We'll use general anesthesia and extract bone marrow from your hip bones using a special needle. You'll likely experience some pain and fatigue afterward, but most donors return to normal activities within a week. And for Emma? Jessica asked. What happens on her end? Emma will undergo intensive chemotherapy tonight and early tomorrow to suppress her immune system and make room for the new cells, Dr. Lewis explained, joining the conversation. This is the most challenging part of the process for her. After receiving Daniel's bone marrow cells, she'll need to remain in isolation until the new cells engraft, typically 2 to 4 weeks. The first 100 days post-transplant are the most critical. I understand, Daniel said. What about longer-term recovery? If all goes well, Emma could return to normal activities within 6 to 12 months, Dr. Lewis said. However, there are significant risks: infection, graft versus host disease, organ damage from the preparatory regimen. We'll monitor her very closely. I'd like to speak with the surgical team, Daniel said, and review the complete protocol. Of course, Dr. Miller replied. They're expecting you. As Daniel left with Dr. Miller, Jessica sank into a waiting room chair, the reality of what Emma faced hitting her anew. Dr. Lewis sat beside her. Emma is young and was healthy before this, he said gently. That gives her significant advantages. And having a well-matched donor so quickly, many patients wait months or years. Jessica nodded, trying to draw strength from these facts. How will tonight's preparatory treatment affect her? It will be difficult, doctor. Lewis acknowledged. She'll likely experience nausea, fatigue, possibly fever. We'll manage her symptoms as best we can, but I want you to be prepared. I understand, Jessica said, steeling herself for the night ahead. When can I see her again? She'll be sleeping now, but you can sit with her. Once the evening treatments begin, we'll need you to step out periodically, but you can remain close by. Jessica returned to Emma's room to find her daughter sleeping peacefully, momentarily free from pain or fear. She settled into the chair Daniel had occupied, gently taking Emma's hand, careful not to disturb the IV line. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, checking vital signs, administering medications. Emma woke briefly, disoriented and nauseated as the preparatory drugs began their work. Jessica held a basin for her, wiped her forehead, murmured soothing words. Just after 9 in the evening, Daniel returned, stopping short at the sight of Emma curled on her side, trembling despite the blankets covering her. The chemo? He asked quietly. Jessica nodded. It hit her hard about an hour ago. Daniel approached the bed slowly. Is there anything I can do? Just be here, Jessica said. It helps to know she's not alone. Daniel settled into the second chair, watching Emma with concern. The surgical team is excellent, he said after a while. I've reviewed their credentials, the procedure protocols. Everything is state-of-the-art. Of course he had checked, Jessica thought. Daniel had always been thorough, leaving nothing to chance when something mattered to him. I've made arrangements to stay in Bayview for at least the next month, Daniel continued. Rented a house near the hospital. I've shifted most of my responsibilities at the company. Postponed the AI platform launch indefinitely. Jessica looked at him in surprise. You're staying? What about your company? Harrison Technologies has survived without me for 48 hours, Daniel said dryly. I suspect it can manage a few more weeks. Besides, I've spent 15 years building a company. I think it's time I focused on building a relationship with my daughter. Before Jessica could respond, Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Dad? She murmured, the words still new on her lips. You came back. Daniel moved closer, carefully taking her free hand. I promised I would. Emma managed a weak smile. I feel awful. I know, Daniel said softly. The doctors say that means the treatment is working. You just need to hold on through tonight, and tomorrow you'll get my super-powered bone marrow cells. Emma's smile widened slightly. Super-powered, huh? Absolutely. Guaranteed to make you at least 30% more stubborn. Emma laughed weakly, then winced. Don't make me laugh. It hurts. Sorry, Daniel said, genuine concern crossing his face. Can I get you anything? Water? Another blanket? Emma shook her head, then looked between her parents. It's weird, seeing you both together. I've imagined it so many times. Jessica and Daniel exchanged a glance, neither knowing how to respond to that revelation. Try to rest, Jessica said, smoothing Emma's hair back. Tomorrow's a big day. Emma's eyes were already closing again, the medications pulling her back toward sleep. Will you both be here when I wake up? Yes. Daniel and Jessica answered in unison. The night stretched long and difficult. Emma's nausea worsened, and she developed a fever that had the medical team concerned. Jessica and Daniel took turns sitting beside her, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths, speaking softly to her when she was lucid enough to hear them. Around 3 in the morning, during a brief period when Emma was sleeping and Daniel had stepped out to take an urgent call, Dr. Lewis checked Emma's vital signs with a furrowed brow. Her fever's higher than I'd like, he told Jessica, and her blood pressure is dropping. We may need to adjust the preparatory protocol. Jessica felt fear clench around her heart. Is the transplant still happening tomorrow? That's our goal, Dr. Lewis said cautiously. But Emma's safety comes first. If her condition deteriorates further, we might need to postpone. When Daniel returned, Jessica shared the doctor's concerns. Daniel's expression grew grave. What are the risks of postponing, he asked, given the aggressive nature of her condition? Significant, Jessica admitted. Dr. Lewis has been clear that time is not on our side. Daniel nodded once, determination settling over his features. Then we do everything possible to stabilize her for tomorrow. What does she need? Different medications? Specialists? Name it. The medical team is excellent, Daniel, Jessica said gently. They're doing everything they can. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. I'm not used to feeling this. Helpless. There's always been a solution. A path forward. Something I could build or buy or create to solve a problem. Welcome to parenthood, Jessica said with a sad smile. Most of it is realizing how little control you actually have. They fell silent, watching Emma sleep fitfully, both lost in their own thoughts. What was she like as a baby? Daniel asked suddenly. Jessica glanced at him, surprised by the question. Serious, she answered after a moment. Even as an infant, she watched everything so intently. But when she smiled, which she did often, it lit up her whole face. She didn't walk until 15 months, but once she started, she never slowed down. Always climbing, exploring, figuring things out. Like taking apart the DVD player at age 3? Daniel asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Emma told you about that? She said you weren't thrilled. It was our only one, Jessica explained, and money was tight. But I couldn't stay angry. She was so proud of herself for discovering how the laser mechanism worked. Daniel's smile faded. You shouldn't have had to struggle financially. If I had known... We managed, Jessica interrupted gently. It wasn't always easy, but Emma never lacked for anything important. We had enough. Daniel looked skeptical, but didn't argue. She mentioned you work as a software consultant now? Jessica nodded. Mostly remote work for small businesses, website development, database management, basic security protocols. Nothing as cutting edge as Harrison Technologies, but it's flexible and pays the bills. You could have had a significant career in tech, Daniel observed. You were brilliant with systems integration, even back then. I made my choice, Jessica said simply. Emma came first. Dawn broke, pale light filtering through the hospital blinds. Emma's condition had stabilized somewhat, her fever reduced, vital signs stronger. Dr. Lewis reviewed her latest results and gave a cautious approval for the transplant to proceed as scheduled. We'll take Emma to prep in about an hour, a nurse informed them. Mr. Harrison, Dr. Miller is waiting to begin your preparation as well. Daniel nodded, then turned to Emma, who was awake but groggy. I have to go get ready to donate my supercells, he told her. I'll see you afterward, okay? Emma managed a weak smile. Good luck. Thanks for, saving my life and stuff. Daniel's composure cracked, and he leaned down to press a gentle kiss to Emma's forehead. Anytime, kiddo. Anytime. After Daniel left, Emma turned to Jessica. He's different than I imagined. Different how? Jessica asked. Warmer, Emma said thoughtfully. In the interviews I found online, he seems so controlled, but with me, he's not like that. That's because you matter to him, Jessica said softly. Setting us brains, desetting us brains, desetting us brains, setting 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 us brains. More than he ever expected, Emma's eyes grew serious. He's angry with you, isn't he? For not telling him about me, Jessica sighed. Yes, and he has every right to be. But you did what you thought was best, Emma said loyally. I did, Jessica agreed. But sometimes what we think is best isn't actually right. I should have told him, Emma. He deserved to know he had a daughter, and you deserved to know your father. Emma was quiet for a moment. Do you think, after all this, will he want to be part of my life? Oh, Em, Jessica said, heart aching at the vulnerability in her daughter's voice. He already is. I've never seen anyone reorganize their entire life as quickly as Daniel has since learning about you. He's staying in Bayview, putting his company on hold. He's all in, sweetheart. Relief washed over Emma's tired face. Good, she whispered. That's good. The transplant day passed in a blur of medical procedures and anxious waiting. Jessica sat in a surgical waiting room, while both Daniel and Emma underwent their respective procedures. Daniel to have bone marrow extracted from his hip bones. Emma to receive the life-saving cells. Dr. Miller found Jessica mid-morning. Mr. Harrison's donation went smoothly, he reported. We were able to collect an excellent quantity of healthy cells. He's in recovery now. Uncomfortable, but stable. And Emma? Jessica asked. Has the transplant begun? It's underway now, Dr. Miller confirmed. The actual infusion of cells is surprisingly anticlimactic, similar to a blood transfusion. The critical period comes in the days and weeks ahead as we wait to see if the new cells engraft properly. By late afternoon, both procedures were complete. Emma had been moved to a specialized isolation room where she would remain for weeks, protected from any potential infections while her new immune system established itself. Daniel, despite obvious discomfort from the extraction sites in his hips, insisted on being wheeled to see Emma before returning to the small house he'd rented near the hospital. The transplant went well, Dr. Lewis assured them both. Now we watch and wait. The next few weeks won't be easy, Emma. The side effects from the preparatory regimen will continue, and you may experience new symptoms as the donor cells begin to work. But you're strong, and we'll be monitoring you constantly. Emma nodded tiredly from her bed, surrounded by medical equipment in the sterile room. Visitors had to wear masks, gowns, and gloves, an added barrier that made the emotional connection more challenging. So now we have the same blood, Emma said to Daniel, attempting to lighten the mood. That's kind of cool. Daniel smiled behind his surgical mask. More than that, you'll have my immune system. Finally, someone else with my ridiculous allergy to strawberries. Emma groaned. Seriously? Strawberries? That's my favorite fruit. Was your favorite fruit? Daniel corrected with mock solemnity. I'm afraid that's no longer in the cards for you. Jessica watched this exchange with a mixture of joy and sadness, joy that Emma and Daniel had connected so quickly, sadness for all the years of similar moments they'd missed. The days that followed established a new routine. Emma remained in isolation, battling nausea, fatigue, and occasional fevers as her body adjusted to the transplant. Jessica stayed at the hospital almost constantly, sleeping in a recliner in Emma's room when permitted, stepping out only when medical procedures required it. Daniel divided his time between the hospital, his rented house where he managed unavoidable work responsibilities remotely, and somewhat surprisingly to Jessica, bringing food and necessities to the hospital for her. You need to eat something besides vending machine sandwiches, he insisted one evening, arriving with containers of homemade soup and fresh bread from a local bakery. You cooked? Jessica asked incredulously, accepting the offering. Don't sound so surprised, Daniel replied. I've lived alone for 15 years. I had to learn eventually. They established an uneasy truce, their shared concern for Emma creating a bridge across the chasm of past hurts. They didn't discuss the future or legal arrangements or the complex emotions between them. Those conversations could wait until Emma was stable. A week after the transplant, Dr. Lewis brought encouraging news. We're seeing the first signs of engraftment, he reported. White blood cell counts are rising, which suggests the donor cells are beginning to produce new blood cells. It's early days, but this is a very positive sign. Does that mean I can go home soon? Emma asked hopefully, tired of the isolation room's confines. Not quite yet, Doctor, Lewis cautioned. We need to see sustained engraftment and make sure there are no complications. But if things continue this way, we might be able to reduce some restrictions in another week or so. Emma sighed, but nodded her understanding. Later, when they were alone, she confessed to Jessica, I'm scared, Mom. What if this doesn't work? What if, after everything finding Dad, the transplant, all of it, I still don't get better? Jessica sat carefully on the edge of Emma's bed, taking her gloved hand. One day at a time. Remember? That's how we've always handled tough stuff. Today, your numbers are better. Today, the doctors are encouraged. Today is enough for now. Emma nodded, blinking back tears. I'm glad he's here, she said after a moment. Dad, I mean, even if things don't work out, I'm glad I got to know him. I am too, Jessica admitted. 2 weeks post-transplant, Emma experienced her first significant setback, a high fever and rash that Dr. Lewis identified as potential signs of graft versus host disease, a complication where the donor cells attack the recipient's body. We're adjusting her immunosuppressive medications, he explained to the worried parents. This is a common complication, and we caught it early. The fact that Daniel is such a close genetic match should help minimize the severity. Daniel, who had been keeping his emotions tightly controlled throughout the ordeal, finally broke down in the hospital chapel late that night. Jessica found him there, head bowed, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Daniel," she said softly, sliding into the pew beside him. He straightened immediately, wiping his face. "Sorry, I didn't expect anyone to be here." "It's okay to be scared," Jessica said gently. "I'm terrified too." Daniel looked at her, his guard momentarily lowered. "How did you do this for 15 years? Carry all this fear and love and responsibility alone?" "One day at a time," Jessica replied, echoing what she'd told Emma. "Some days better than others." They sat in silence for a long moment before Daniel spoke again. "If anything happens to her, if I've found her only to lose her—" "Don't," Jessica interrupted. "Emma is strong. She's fighting. And she has both of us now." Daniel nodded, visibly pulling himself together. "You're right. I've never cared about anything the way I care about her, even after just these few weeks." "It's overwhelming," Jessica suggested. "Life-changing," Daniel corrected. 3 weeks post-transplant, Emma's condition began to improve steadily. The graft versus host symptoms receded with treatment, and blood tests confirmed that the donor cells were functioning properly. Emma's natural resilience began to reassert itself, her spirits lifting as her physical strength gradually returned. "We're not out of the woods yet," Dr. Lewis cautioned. "The first 100 days post-transplant remain a critical period. But Emma's progress is remarkable. If things continue this way, we might consider releasing her to outpatient care in another week or two." This news prompted a necessary conversation about what would happen next. One evening, while Emma was sleeping, Jessica and Daniel sat in the hospital's small garden, finally discussing the future. "I'd like Emma to come to San Francisco when she's well enough," Daniel began. "Harrison Technologies has connections with the best medical facilities for her follow-up care." Jessica tensed. Her life is in Bayview, Daniel. Her school, her friends, her support system. "Her father is in San Francisco," Daniel countered. "A father she's just beginning to know, who wants to be part of her life. Doesn't that matter?" "Of course it matters," Jessica said, "but uprooting her completely, especially while she's still recovering." "I'm not suggesting taking her away from you," Daniel clarified, his tone softening. "I'm talking about shared custody, arrangement that gives her time with both of us." Jessica hesitated, the prospect of sharing Emma after 15 years as her sole parent, both reasonable and terrifying. "What about your work? You've put everything on hold for weeks now, but eventually—" "I've been rethinking my priorities," Daniel interrupted. "Even before all this happened, I was becoming disconnected from what really matters. Building technology is important, but not at the expense of human connection. Emma has shown me that." Will a father's blood save more than just his daughter's life? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to see how this story ends. Your support helps us bring these emotional journeys to life, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. "So, what are you suggesting?" Jessica asked. Daniel took a deep breath. "I'm considering opening a Harrison Technologies research center in Bayview or Santa Clara, close enough that I could split my time, be present for Emma regularly without completely disrupting her life." Jessica stared at him in surprise. "You'd relocate part of your company for her?" "I'd relocate all of it if that's what it took," Daniel said simply. "But a research center focused on medical technology applications, including neural interfaces, which fascinate Emma, makes sense from a business perspective too." "You've thought this through," Jessica observed. "I've had a lot of time sitting beside Emma's hospital bed," Daniel replied, "watching her fight so hard. Seeing her brilliant mind at work, even when she's at her weakest, it changes how you think about what matters." Jessica nodded, understanding completely. "We should talk to Emma about this. She's old enough to have input on decisions that affect her life. Agreed, Daniel said, though the ultimate responsibility remains ours as her parents. Parents. The word hung between them, a shared identity neither had anticipated reclaiming together. The following week brought another milestone, Emma's release from isolation. Though she would need to return to the hospital daily for treatments and monitoring, she could leave the sterile room that had been her home for nearly a month. The timing coincided with a more personal milestone, Emma's 16th birthday. Some sweet 16, huh? Emma joked weakly as a nurse helped her into a wheelchair for her first journey outside her room. She was thin and pale, her dark hair just beginning to grow back after the intense chemotherapy. But her green eyes, Daniel's eyes, sparkled with excitement at this small freedom. "We'll make it special," Jessica promised, walking alongside the wheelchair. Daniel met them in the hospital lobby, a wrapped package tucked under his arm. "Ready for your grand tour of the parking lot?" he asked with a smile. Emma laughed. 5-star destination. The spring air felt miraculous after weeks of filtered hospital atmosphere. Emma closed her eyes, face tilted toward the sun as they settled in a small courtyard garden. "Best birthday present ever," she declared. "Fresh air that doesn't smell like disinfectant." "I did bring an actual present," Daniel said, handing her the carefully wrapped package. "Though it might seem premature." Emma unwrapped it curiously to find a sleek laptop, not just any laptop, but a custom-designed model with specifications far beyond consumer versions. This isn't even available to the public," Emma said, eyes wide as she examined it. "It's a prototype," Daniel confirmed. "Our engineering team adapted it specifically for biomedical application development, like neural interfaces." He hesitated. "I thought when you're stronger, you might want to continue working on your designs." Emma looked up at her father, tears in her eyes. "You remembered." "Of course I did," Daniel said softly. "Your ideas were brilliant, Emma. They deserve development." "Thank you," Emma whispered, clutching the laptop to her chest. "Not just for this, but for everything. For coming when Mom called. For the transplant. For staying. I'm your father," Daniel said simply. "I always will be." Jessica, watching this exchange, felt a complex emotion she couldn't quite name: joy for Emma, mixed with lingering sadness for all the years father and daughter had missed, along with something new, something unexpected, a tentative hope for the future. Later that afternoon, when Emma had returned to her room for rest and treatments, Daniel approached Jessica in the waiting area. "I've found a house," he said without preamble, "in Bayview, close to Emma's school and your home. It's available for immediate occupancy." Jessica looked up in surprise. "You're moving here? Permanently?" "Semi-permanently," Daniel qualified. "I'll still need to travel to San Francisco regularly until the research center is established. But yes, Bayview will be my primary residence." "What about your penthouse? Your life in the city?" Daniel shrugged. "It's just space and things, Jessica. Replaceable. Emma isn't." Jessica studied him, seeing the determination in his expression. "You're really serious about this?" "Completely," Daniel confirmed. "I've missed 15 years, but I'm not missing another day. I don't have to." "Emma will be thrilled," Jessica said. "She's been worried about what happens after she's discharged, whether you'd return to San Francisco and she'd only see you occasionally." "Never," Daniel said firmly. "I'm all in, Jessica. Whatever that means. Whatever it takes." 2 months after the transplant, Emma was finally discharged from daily hospital visits to weekly checkups. Her recovery was progressing well, better than the medical team had initially hoped. Though still weak and requiring careful monitoring, she was eager to resume some semblance of normal life. Daniel had settled into his Bayview house, a spacious but comfortable home overlooking the bay. He'd converted one bedroom into a state-of-the-art home office, another into a technology lab equipped for Emma's projects when she felt strong enough to pursue them. The custody arrangement they discussed became reality, with Emma splitting time between her childhood home with Jessica and her new space at Daniel's house. The transition wasn't without challenges. Emma's medical needs remained significant, and the emotional adjustments for everyone were complex. "It's weird having 2 houses," Emma confessed to Jessica one evening. "Good, weird, Mostly. But sometimes I feel like I'm living two different lives. Is it too much? Jessica asked, concerned. We can adjust the schedule if... No, Emma interrupted. I want time with both of you. It's just different. Dad's so eager to make up for lost time. Sometimes it's a little intense. And I think he's still figuring out how to parent a teenager. Jessica smiled. That's a steep learning curve even without the unusual circumstances. He asked if I wanted to invite friends over, Emma said with a laugh. I had to remind him that most of my friends don't know I'm suddenly the daughter of Daniel Harrison, tech billionaire. That's not exactly something you drop casually into conversation. This raised a point Jessica had been considering. We should think about how to handle the public aspects of this situation, Em. At some point, people will notice Daniel's presence in Bayview, the connection to us. Emma nodded thoughtfully. Dad mentioned that too. He's worried about media attention affecting my recovery. Your father has always valued his privacy, Jessica observed, even before he was famous. He said the same thing about you, Emma replied with a smile. That you were the most private person he knew, even back then. These small revelations, the traits and memories Daniel and Jessica shared with Emma about each other, created an unexpected bridge between past and present, healing old wounds as they focused on their shared commitment to their daughter's well-being. 3 months after the transplant, Emma received permission to return to school part-time. Her classmates and teachers had been told only that she'd been treated for a blood disorder. The details of her parentage remained private for now. On the morning of her first day back, both Jessica and Daniel drove her to school together. This is embarrassing, Emma protested, though her smile belied her words. Nobody's parents actually walked them into high school. Nobody's parents saved their life with superpowered bone marrow, Daniel countered. Special circumstances. As they watched Emma walk carefully toward the school entrance, where her closest friends waited with excited welcomes, Daniel spoke quietly to Jessica. Thank you. Jessica glanced at him in surprise. For what? For raising her to be the person she is, Daniel said simply. You did an extraordinary job, Jessica. She made it easy, Jessica replied, watching as Emma disappeared into the building. She always has. 6 months post-transplant, Emma's medical team declared her officially in remission. Though she would require ongoing monitoring for years to come, the immediate danger had passed. The celebration dinner at Daniel's house brought together not only the three of them, but also Emma's closest friends, who had finally been introduced to the truth about her father. They think it's hilarious that I didn't recognize you, Emma told Daniel as they prepared dessert in the kitchen. Apparently, your TED Talk on quantum computing was required viewing in AP Computer Science last year. Daniel laughed. That's slightly mortifying. Mia asked if you could help her with her science fair project, Emma continued. I told her to get in line. You're my personal tech consultant first. Their easy banter, developed over months of shared recovery and gradually deepening connection, warmed Jessica's heart as she watched from the doorway. The journey hadn't been smooth. There had been medical setbacks, emotional struggles, conflicts about boundaries and expectations, but they had emerged as a family, unconventional but undeniably bound to one another. Later that evening, after Emma's friends had left and she had gone to bed, exhausted but happy, Daniel and Jessica sat on his deck overlooking the moonlit bay. The research center location is finalized, Daniel said. Construction begins next month. We should be operational within a year. Emma mentioned you offered her an internship once she's fully recovered, Jessica said. Daniel nodded. When her doctors approve, and only part-time. Her education comes first. She's excited about it, Jessica admitted. She's already sketching designs for the neural interface project. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Daniel spoke again, his voice thoughtful. I've been thinking about that day you came to my office. If Emma hadn't gotten sick, would you ever have told me about her? Jessica considered the question seriously. I'd like to think that eventually I would have. Maybe when she turned 18, when the choice would have been more hers than mine. But honestly, I don't know, Daniel. The longer I waited, the more impossible it seemed. I understand that better now, Daniel said surprisingly. The fear of disrupting something precious, of making the wrong choice. Parenting is humbling. Very, Jessica agreed with a smile. I was so angry at first, Daniel continued. I couldn't understand how you could keep something so important from me. But these past months, watching you with Emma, seeing the life you built for her, for both of you, I've gained a different perspective." "What's that?" Jessica asked. "That sometimes there are no perfect choices, only imperfect ones, made with the best intentions." He turned to face her directly. "I'm not saying I agree with your decision, but I understand it better, and I'm grateful that when it really mattered, when Emma's life was at stake, you trusted me enough to come back." "You've been everything she needed," Jessica said softly. "More than I ever expected." "She makes it easy," Daniel echoed Jessica's earlier words with a smile. 1 year after the transplant, Emma celebrated what her doctors called her second birthday, the anniversary of receiving her father's cells. Now fully recovered and thriving in school, she had grown into her new reality with remarkable grace. She split her time between her parents' homes, worked part-time at the newly opened Harrison Technologies Research Center, and had begun applying to colleges with strong biomedical engineering programs. The anniversary celebration was small, just Emma and her parents, at Jessica's house, where they had lived together for 15 years before Daniel entered their lives. "I have something for both of you," Emma announced after dinner, presenting each parent with an identical small box. Jessica and Daniel opened them simultaneously to find matching silver keychains, each engraved with the chemical structure of hemoglobin. "Blood connects us," Emma explained, suddenly shy. "In more ways than one," I thought. "Well, I wanted you both to have a reminder of how everything changed, how we became a family." Jessica felt tears spring to her eyes as she clutched the small silver pendant. Daniel cleared his throat, visibly moved. "It's perfect, Em," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Just like you." Later, as Daniel prepared to leave, Emma having already gone to bed, he paused at Jessica's door. "I've been offered a speaking engagement in Boston next month," he said. "At MIT. Emma mentioned she'd like to tour the campus since it's one of her top college choices. I thought perhaps all 3 of us could go? Make it a family trip?" Family. The word had transformed over the past year, expanding to include possibilities Jessica had never imagined. "I think Emma would love that," she said softly. "And you?" Daniel asked, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that recalled their earlier days. "I think it sounds perfect," Jessica replied. As she watched Daniel drive away, Jessica reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. A secret kept for 15 years, revealed in desperate circumstances, a daughter's life hanging in the balance. A father's blood flowing through her veins, saving not only her life but creating connections none of them had anticipated. The future remained unwritten. Emma's college choice, Daniel's continued presence in Bayview, the evolving relationship between all 3 of them. But for the first time in 15 years, Jessica faced that future without the weight of secrets, with the knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together, bound by blood and by choice. An imperfect but loving family forged through crisis into something stronger and more precious than any of them could have imagined. Emma stood at her bedroom window, watching her father's car disappear down the street. Her reflection in the glass showed a face transformed not just by illness and recovery, but by discovery and connection. She touched the silver hemoglobin pendant hanging around her neck, matching the keychains she'd given her parents. "Worth it," she whispered to herself, a small smile playing on her lips. "All of it worth it." If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Cedar Drama for more powerful stories about love, forgiveness, and finding your way home. Share in the comments if you believe family bonds can overcome any challenge. And remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come from our most difficult trials.